Teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. To my regular listeners, you already know how it gets down. You know what it's all about when you hit that play button. Nothing but incredible moments, incredible people, incredible messages, incredible stories to give you to just make it so you get through your moment. Today, coming straight out of the UK, of all places, Miss Tara Halliday, who's getting ready to give us a master class on imposter syndrome. So, all that being said, Tara, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Aswan. It's great to be here. Really excited to talk about this, actually.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
excited. I'm excited as a former athlete and coach, scout, has been in the sports world, now is kind of in the education and the business world. We see it all the time. It's copycat syndrome. Everybody wants to be like somebody else. And in many ways, sometimes it can be beneficial to you. But this concept of imposter syndrome, now there's certain points of it where it can actually be a detriment. So I'd love to just start off by just get an overall perspective or definition of what imposter syndrome is and how you're able to navigate and help people with it. I'll just kind of give you an open slate now and run with it. So go and do your thing.
All right, great. So imposter syndrome is the secret feeling of being a fraud, not good enough, when you are good enough, right? So it's a false illusion that you're not good enough. So
Yeah.
it hits successful people, and it affects over 70% of high achievers, which is an awful lot of people. This is why people keep it a secret. They don't talk about it because they think it's just them. And so the idea then perpetuates. And really the problem with imposter syndrome is it gets in the way of you achieving your best, achieving what you want to do. It changes the way that you think, even on a physiological level, and we can get into that. So
Yeah.
what we need to do is to change the root cause of imposter syndrome. So there are symptoms that people see, and there's the root cause. And treating the symptom is not enough. You have to treat the root cause.
Right. And I'm glad you clarified that for the listeners and for myself as well, because I think it is important to understand that there are symptoms and the root causes is something that it takes a little more digging. But when it comes to the symptoms, do want to get your thoughts on when you see it being something productive, though, when you see it, like, where's the difference between me wanting, like, I'm a football guy. I used to look up to Ray Lewis. I wanted to be the best NFL linebacker and stuff like so. It was making it so I worked out a lot, making it so I stayed away from alcohol and drugs and all the other things
Yeah.
that could have gotten me in the way. So it's being productive, but it gets to a point, like you said, whereas now you got to accept the fact, look, I'm not going to be as good as Ray Lewis. That doesn't mean I just go and do things wrong. Can you kind of navigate and walk us through how you say, okay, there's some good parts about imposter syndrome, but here's the signs for the listeners to say, hey, okay, now we got to figure out how to get into the root cause and navigate that space a little bit.
Right. Okay. Well, so in terms of the actual symptoms, one of the one that you're talking about now is a very, very common one, comparing, where you're comparing yourself to other people and you're feeling that they're so much better than you and that you're therefore not good enough. And although that's a symptom of imposter syndrome, um, it's not, I wouldn't say that any of the symptoms of imposter syndrome are happy, helpful. So but the comparing, I can see what you mean in terms
Sure.
of if you compare to someone for inspiration.
Yeah, like an
Right.
inspiration
Like
thing.
you said, look, I will copy this guy's method. I will do
Yeah,
all the things
I
that
will
he.
run like, I mean, everything. I used to wear his jersey underneath my pads. I used to he used to take a deck of cards, do as many push-ups. Again, these are things that are actually going to be beneficial and productive. But
Yes.
what I would kind of go back and tell my younger self is like, because as one was willing to do those things, I'm giving Ray Lewis too much credit for doing these things. But at the end of the day, I know I saw him do it, so it made me want to be productive. And that's really what I want to get at, because I agree with you to the point where you're right. It isn't as helpful as you thought it was, but there are
Yeah.
points of it where at least it puts you kind of in the right track or the right state of mind. So
Yeah,
let's do that.
exactly. So the good comparing is when you're getting inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
where it motivates you, where it gets you to do something and gets you to stretch when you maybe are a bit tired, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
they'll go that extra mile, right? All
Right.
of that,
Hmm.
that's positive. The negative part of comparing is where you look at your colleagues and peers, and that's whether it's in sports or business, and
Hmm.
think they are so much better at this, I'm not good enough. And
Hmm.
therefore, and you start judging yourself and criticizing yourself. Now, that's where it turns into
Right.
a very unhelpful thing, because if you're judging yourself, you're criticizing yourself.
Hmm.
That then changes your physiology.
Hmm.
Right now, this is fascinating. When you have this kind of strong self-doubt, self-criticism, self-judgment, you're thinking that you just got lucky, which is a lot of what imposter syndrome is about. Um, that triggers your nervous system. And your nervous system goes from being, you know, calm and productive to,
Hmm.
it goes into emergency mode, it goes into danger mode, it puts you into fight, flight, or freeze states. And nervous system states,
Hmm.
totally appropriate if there's a tiger in the room and you've got to fight
Yeah.
your way out or run
I'd
away or something
imagine,
like that,
yes. Yeah.
right? This is your natural physiological reaction to
Hmm.
danger. And there's nothing wrong with it. However,
Hmm.
there is no danger here. And what it does is it changes the blood flow in your body. So it
Hmm.
changes the blood flow to your large muscle groups to allow you to fight or run away.
Hmm.
And it takes that blood, because it's got to come from somewhere, from
Right.
your digestive system, as many people know, but also from a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is
Hmm.
just behind your forehead. And that's your logical thinking, strategic planning part of the brain. And
Hmm.
the problem with that is when that doesn't get enough blood flow, literally oxygen, nutrients, right? You literally cannot think so well. In
Hmm.
fact, the Princeton University did a study where they measured that people's IQ dropped by 13 points
Hmm.
when they're in the fight, flight, and freeze state,
Right.
which is huge. Creativity goes down by 50%.
Hmm. Yeah.
It makes you emotionally reactive, so you're not as calm, you don't make such good decisions. There's a lot of negative performance consequences
Yeah.
for your nervous system. It makes you anxious and overwhelmed. And
Mm.
then what happens is you start to do some coping behaviors, unproductive behaviors. So people become perfectionist, they
Yeah,
procrastinate,
that's where the
they
comparison,
over
because that's where
prepare,
the comparison can get you in trouble. Right.
and the comparison, and so all of those are just ways that your system is trying to
Hmm.
cope with that stress. And
Right.
then, of course, because those behaviors are unproductive, then
Mhm.
people judge themselves, and then so they're going around in this circle, right?
Yeah.
And that's the symptom circle, and that's why it's so significant when you're talking about wanting to perform at your very best.
Yeah.
It's really holding you back, and
Mhm.
it's not even the way that you're thinking about it. It goes a bit deeper than that as well.
Yeah, and then also with the example I shared, you could run into the concept or the idea, the aspect of trying to be a perfectionist because of
Yes.
you're looking up to these people and you're seeing the finished product. Like I'm seeing Ray Lewis
Right.
already in the NFL. I'm not seeing Ray Lewis when he was a little kid in middle school, high school, what he was going through in the rough times he was having. I'm seeing the finished product, and that can kind of distort the view as well. So you already kind of mentioned a little bit about take getting away from the root causes and stopping the root causes of it. If there is any
Right.
listening in now that is in a position to help people, whether it's a parent, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a coach or uncle, aunt, whoever the adult is, and they see this imposter syndrome symptoms, well, first of all, can you explain what the root cause is? And then how can they go about getting away from the root cause? And I want to kind of paint a different example in your head as I give you this, because the first one I told you was about a positive one. I
Yeah.
also have, family members that drink and smoke and get high and weren't the best of husbands and things like that. And if I was trying to fit into that family mold, if that was the route I was going in, I could have
Yeah.
spent my high school years smoking and drinking, getting high,
Hmm.
the mess of women abuser and all those things. And that would have been just say, hey, look, these are some of the members of my family. This is what they've done. Why wouldn't I do it? Right. But again, I was going with the football route, but I could have easily, again, I have cousins, I have friends, I have people that have been in my life that easily took the other route and started with the unhealthy behaviors, and then you saw it just spiral out of control. So I know I gave you a loaded question there, but please, why? Because I tell you, I'm very, very interested in this topic. Walk us through, first of all, the symptoms, but how to get that stuff out of it. Because I see it all the time in younger kids that I teach now to
Yeah.
figure out, hey, man, that's just you trying to be like so and so. Let's figure out ways to get that stuff out of your system now. So anyway, the floor is
Yeah.
yours.
No, you make a really, really good point about this. What you're talking about is normalizing in terms of your environment, right?
Yes.
So you're talking about, you grow up in a family and that's what's normal for you. And it's only when you start to get a bit older and see other people's families that you realize, oh, maybe that's not normal for everyone. You just think it's normal for you. And so, there's definitely this idea in business that, surround yourself with people that you want to be with, be like, and who embrace your values, right? So your aspirational team, surround yourself with those people, and that is normalizing it for them. So this is why when you're working with like young athletes, for example, it's great to have them as a group, so they normalize, what even what practice looks like for a team, right? It's not just one walk around the track, right? It's a lot more than that.
I'm sure it's not.
Right. Yeah, or we'd all be superstars, right?
Right.
So then in terms of what is the root cause of imposter syndrome, it actually turns out that this is not down to our environment. It is not down to trauma. It's not down to poor parenting. It's not down to any nasty event happening. None of that.
Man,
And this was
really
this.
a lot. I would have assumed that that's exactly what it's about. Talk to us,
Yeah,
please, then.
yeah. And so this is one of the big myths. And this is why when people haven't had that, my parents were fine. Why do I still feel this way? It's so
Yeah, yeah.
confusing. So this was actually research done way back in the 1950s, right? One of the grandfathers of personal psychology, Dr. Carl Rogers,
Right.
he was looking for, why do people suffer? Why, when they've got food and shelter and clothing and jobs and money,
Yeah.
why are they still miserable, right? Why aren't we just happy with we're getting our basic needs met? And what he came down to, he found the answer, was that we have a belief that our worth as a person depends on what we do, right? Where our worth and our actions are combined.
The congruent,
So
right?
if you do
Parallel.
something, so if you do something good, you are good, right? If you score that winning goal, right, you
Right.
are
Yeah.
good. If
Yeah.
you do something bad or mess up,
Yeah.
then you are bad. And what it means is that life then becomes very, very unstable, right? Because even when we're at the peak, at the top, they feel like, well, if I now make a mistake, then I'm going to be bad again. My worth is going to go down again.
Right.
Or, so this is why you see it showing up for successful people, because it's the worry that goes with it, even when we're successful. This is why you can't out succeed imposter syndrome, right? You can't, the idea as well, when I get to the next level,
Yeah.
then I'm not going to feel this way. I'm not going to feel this self-doubt. I'm not going to feel like I don't belong. I'm going to really appreciate my success. And this is why it doesn't happen. So that's the root cause of it. It's called conditional worth, depending on what you do. And that comes from a part of our development as a child, right? And it affects 99.999% of people across the globe, right? So it's not a cultural issue either.
Right.
And what's going on here is that when a baby is born, right, they've got all the information coming in through all their senses, but they've got no structure for it. They've got no plan. They don't understand things. And then gradually, as they grow and become a toddler, they start to, understand that that's the cat and that's the
Yeah.
table
They
and that's
start getting
hard.
their own personalities, right?
They map it out, yeah, and we start to learn to separate ourselves between the ages of 18 months and 3 years old. We start to identify us as a separate person, right? That realization comes there. Now, at that point is the time that we should have learned to separate our worth from our actions. But
Mm.
because culturally the whole of society doesn't do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
we don't learn it. And
Mhm.
what it happens is that then events reinforce that,
Mhm.
right? And so you know, people remember a certain teacher said this, a certain friend said that, their parents said that, right? But that wasn't what caused it. That's just reinforced it and
Yeah.
told your brain it's true.
Wow.
As you know, when you get to high levels of success and you're still feeling that internal doubt, it's because you're still believing this this missed step in development, still believing an
Mhm.
outdated belief. So that's the work that I do, is change that belief very systematically using all sorts of neuroscience and that. Change that belief so that you understand that your worth is unconditional.
Yeah, and it's making me think a lot because as you're talking, I'm going back to my childhood self. And when I made a great play on the football field, I did that. As simple as it is, it's honestly just actions speak. We're defined by our actions. We're defined
Yes.
actions are speaking louder than words. And these simple sayings turn out to be so true because again, I was successful on the field because that's what I did. I wasn't going down the route of being an alcoholic or being one of these people that I could have easily been running around the bit because I'm good at playing sports and that's what I did. Now, your
Yeah.
point about your parents or people that are around you reinforcing that, that is very true because again, I had two-parent household and they were there. However, when I was not able to do it on the level of a Ray Lewis, that's when a lot of the problems started happening. That's when a lot of disagreements and just a lot of
Mm.
strife and this a lot of going back and forth with my parents and things like that. The people that there was a lot of an awakening when it comes to that. So I'm curious now because you have a book on the subject and because you have been able to codify this, you have clearly studied this to the point where I'm so happy to have you on and so happy that listeners are getting a hold of this. What do you do with your clients? What do you do with people that, are coming to you, whether it's your students, the mentees, the people that want to dive deeper into your work? Walk us through you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. Walk us through the processes in which you are taking to sort of heal them or put them on the path towards healing themselves from this syndrome. Because man, I'm thinking like, man, there's a lot of people that that need it because it's so common to have
Yes.
the imposter syndrome, and there's no one out there that, at least to my knowledge, that's actually out there weeding it out of people. We're just reinforcing some of the things that they do well, and we praise them for what they do well, and we think we're okay. We've done our job as an educator, right? So speak to us. Speak to us.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you know what's interesting, that imposter syndrome was first identified back in 1978, so 40 odd years ago.
Hmm.
And there's a paper, research paper,
1978.
1978,
Yeah, that's
yes.
not even that far. It's just a couple years ago. I was born 89, so it's like I was still a kid basically.
It only just discovered it. Yeah, yeah. And well, they identified it. Obviously, it's been
Yeah.
there around. Um, there was a research paper published in 2020
Hmm.
that looked at all the research, and they found that there were no tested, like proven solutions to imposter syndrome by that point,
Mm.
right? 2020. So it's like 40 years of research. People don't know what to do. And my understanding for that is that they're going for the symptoms and not the root cause. Now, there are 4 studies out there now,
Hmm.
which have some help.
Right.
And what I'm going to tell you is the one that so far it's got the best results of all of them. So I'm very excited to share this with you.
Yes, yes,
So what
please.
we do, yeah, so what we do is we work one-to-one,
Hmm.
because this isn't a mindset thing, and it's not something you can read my book, Outsmart Imposter Syndrome, and you'll get the flavor for it.
Hmm.
But the work is one-to-one. We go quite deep, because what we're going to do is we're going to change that belief that your worth is conditional, and we're going to change it to your worth is unconditional. The
Man.
first thing we do is we start with tools that allow you to get calm, right? I mentioned the fight, flight, and freeze state. As
Hmm.
soon as you're in that state, then you're not at your best. You're not in your peak. You're not working at your best. So
Hmm.
the very first thing we do is techniques to get your whole nervous system back to the calm state. And
Hmm.
then we go to deeper levels of calm by identifying some of the symptoms and
Hmm.
plans for what you can do about the symptoms, and then identifying your trigger points and plans for, avoiding the trigger points. So yeah, so don't run through the mud kind of thing.
Right.
Run around it. Yeah, all those. So that's kind of like the foundation first to get calm. When your nervous system is calm, then we can do the brain engineering, if you like, the changing. And
Hmm.
then the next step is a way of viewing the world, so you're not taking things personally,
Hmm.
right? So we're talking about, self-criticism, self-judgment. You see someone get angry at you and shout at you.
Hmm.
There's a way that you can look at that and see that that's about them and
Yeah.
what's going on for them. So
Yeah.
it puts you into an amazingly powerful, resourceful state, because you're not then swept away by other people's
Hmm.
unhelpful stuff.
Right. The stuff
And
they didn't work out, right? Because that's what they
yeah,
do. They try to put their bullshit on you. Right.
yeah, it's that I mean, if you have someone saying, well, this is your fault,
Hmm.
right, then you tend to believe it. When
Exactly.
we see things as, someone saying this is your fault, as them saying, I've had a really hard day and I'm really stressed out, and yeah,
When you know that that's actually what it is, right?
that's right. And that allows you to get calmer, and that allows you to start seeing people with compassion,
Hmm.
right? To understand that they're doing the best that they can with
Hmm.
the resources that they have at the time, and that really is, something that, anybody in their position with their experiences would do the same, right? So you start to see other people's worth as being unconditional,
Right.
rather than blaming them, making them bad for what they do.
Hmm.
And then you go through another level where you do that for yourself,
Right.
spend a bit more time just reinforcing that, deepening that, and then adding in, the extras, like aligning authenticity, because when you change that worth belief, then you can get to your values more easily, more quickly, and really operate from them in an effortless way.
So what sort of pushback do you get? Because as you just mentioned, you're teaching people that their condition isn't going to be valued to their worth. That's going to be unconditional, right? Yet I can
Yeah,
think of so many relationships that were based on a condition, like, oh, you got to make this amount, you got to do this, you got to look like this, and all of a sudden they're together. I could see so many of that kind of being broken up the minute they start to realize, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be loved unconditionally, not based on a condition. So speak to that a little bit.
yeah. So I mean, this is why imposter syndrome is not just about performance, athletic performance and work, right?
Mhm.
It ripples out, and it has this
Yeah,
impact
exactly. Those
because
are
it's
the same
based on this
effects from right,
conditional work.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So what I see is that people are able to communicate much better,
Hmm.
because they're not
Yes,
being reactive about being blamed. They see the other person as doing the best they can. They hold them in compassion.
right,
They're not, you know, responding if someone's shouting. You're not getting into a fight,
right.
which calms the other person down.
Hmm.
So I've seen people come back from the brink of divorce.
Yeah, yeah, because you're right. Years of it, it's going to lead to that divorce. But eventually, if you realize, and these are just small switches in the mind, they come back. That,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly, exactly.
that's it.
Glad you
It's
brought that
so
up.
it's absolutely brilliant. So people are able to talk more clearly about themselves, because they're
Mhm.
not stressed, because they can keep calm, and they can keep compassionate, and they can have that both of us are unconditionally worthy conversation. It's just amazing. People have more time for their children.
Mhm.
They they're able to switch off at night, because they're not stressed, because they're not going round and round in this loop of the imposter syndrome symptoms, the worry, the stress of it,
Mhm.
the replaying things in your head over and over, all of that. So they've got more time for their kids, more patience, they're more present, and it's just amazing. They then start to be, from that point, you're able to teach your children that your worth is not what you do.
Yes, and that is a that like life is a race to get there because we live in this society that's conditioning us to do the opposite, where we're praising and we just want to, we're not realizing how much it is actually affecting our young people. So, again, I do
Yeah.
want to be very respectful of your time, Tara. Can you just, tell people what's next if they want to work with you, if your business, how you plan on serving people, and what's the best way to get in touch with you if they want to hear more. So I'll let you kind of take it away from there.
Yeah, so what I've got going on right now is a bit of I mentioned the research projects, the four different ones. Well, I'm just embarking on a new research program. So I've actually closed the doors on my one-to-one work temporarily and
Okay.
running a research program. I'm training up because there's a question, I've been running this program a lot and it's getting fantastic results.
Hmm.
And in my paper that I've written, one of the reviewers said, well, is it just therapist effect, they call it, right? Is it me? Is it somehow just
Right.
because I'm such a brilliant coach? And the answer, no, it's
Right.
a very systematic process.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
what I'm doing is I'm training up a bunch of experienced executive coaches. So
Mm.
first they go through my program in a week, a 1 week intensive training.
Mhm.
And then I supervise them and I teach them how to deliver. And then
Mm.
they have 3 case study clients each, and they deliver. So I supervise them delivering it. And what we're doing is we're proving on a much larger scale
Mhm.
that this isn't all down to me, right? So we're repeating the results with a lot of different facilitators, if you like. So this is my big research program. I'm doing it as close to free as I possibly can. Like
Mhm.
it's a super low cost.
Mhm.
And so I would be looking for anyone who is over 33 years of age
Mhm.
and is a leader, entrepreneur,
Mhm.
leadership management, anything like that. And
Mhm.
they get to be case study clients for us one-to-one. We'll be starting this off in October. So I'll give you a link
Hey,
to
and that's I fit that description. You just let me know. And that's actually no, that's actually going to be around the time this episode is going to be released. So hey, you say the word, man. I'll share that. I'll be
Fantastic.
part of it if I can. I think that's
Yeah.
incredible. Like I said, you could probably tell just based on the interview that I'm personally so interested in this type of work, especially if you're talking about how it's affecting our businesses and affecting the way our young people are seeing the world. So what is
Yes.
how do people get in touch with you just to kind of put it out there? Is it a website or
Yeah,
just
website is
Mhm.
outsmartimpostersyndrome.
Great.
And there's a link to the research study right there on the front page. And
Uh,
I give you I'll give you a couple of other links as well.
Absolutely. And all that will be included, excuse me, all that will be included in the show notes as well. So, all that being said, Tara, the way I close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. I want gonna kind of put you on the line now. I want you to go back to a time in your life where you were dealing with the imposter syndrome and you were that person. You were kind of a victim of the kinds of things that you are helping with now. Go back to that young Tara, give her some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
All right. I love it. So my first experience with imposter syndrome was I'd just come out of university. I
Mhm.
applied for a job with this big, global electrical company
Mhm.
and as a graduate trainee. And they sent a message back. They said, we've done our psychological testing. We don't want to offer you a graduate trainee position. We want to put you on a super fast track management position. To which I said, oh no.
Mhm.
That was my imposter syndrome, my feeling that I could not deliver that their expectations of me were too high, and that leadership was a talent, not a skill. Right?
Mhm.
That was, and I can see it now, right?
Yeah,
So
you can see
if
that.
I go back to Tara
Yeah,
then,
yeah. I'm picturing her, right?
sit down and I say, look, leadership, it's a skill and they can teach you. And they're offering you to put you on this track and they will teach you and coach you and mentor you the whole way through,
Uh-huh.
and you will do great. That would have changed my life because I
Um,
went right the way. I actually ran away. I ran away back to university and
uh,
I went and did my PhD because
uh,
that was my comfort zone. Now, there's nothing wrong with a PhD. I
No,
hated it,
no,
but
but I mean, when you think about what it could have been and just that one piece of advice, and the reason I do close out the shows like that is because anybody listening in that's facing that dilemma or in maybe in that situation, we're here for you. I mean, the people I bring on, whether it's just myself or a guest, we're here to get you through the moment, like I said at the beginning. And if that describes your situation, just know there will be people there to mentor you along the way, even if it's not within your company. There's resources out there like Tara, like myself, that can create opportunities for you. So, all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.